Now, a little earlier today, we caught up with, or I should say Sonal caught up with a regular correspondent, I think our unofficial travel correspondent, and he's quite a peculiar travel correspondent because he's doing things a little bit differently. Torbjørn Pedersen, colloquially or affectionately known as Thor. You caught up with him earlier, Sam.
Yeah, I did. So Thor, for people who are regular listeners, you will have heard of him before, but for people who are new to the show, Thor is trying to visit every single country in the world without taking a single flight. And we first spoke to him more than a year ago. He was 5 years into his journey. Guess what? He's
slower than Brexit.
Very good as well.
He's past the 6-year mark at this point. He has been on the road for more than 6 years. And I have to say, we've spoken to him a couple times before, starting to sound a bit weary at this point. I did ask him, how are you doing? He said, well, up and down. Sounds like it's been a tough,
the fact that he's, one or two might be asking, and within the rights to ask, why is he doing this?
I think I asked that very question
I think it was the question that we did ask at the start, and he admitted that he just fancied doing something that has never been done before. No one has ever tried, and for good reason, because it takes over 6 years to do. No one has ever visited every single country.
Guys, I'll see you in 2026.
I'm off. I mean, it's bless him, and he has had, all jokes aside, he's been very candid with us. He's had some real dark moments on this journey.
Yeah, he did say that it's not all sort of laughs. There have been moments where he struggled. He's had to kind of keep himself going. He has 12 countries left to go. So he is nearing the end of his journey. And he's currently in what we always thought would be the most difficult stage, the Pacific Islands. Because if you think of the distance between those islands, how remote they are, the idea of trying to get to them without taking a flight is just bonkers. I mean, the thought that he could even manage to do this. He said he's been on more container ships lately than he's been on land. So he's taking days to travel from one Pacific island to another. So the ones he's done so far, he made it to Papua New Guinea, the Solomon Islands, which he raved about. He said the Solomon Islands are like paradise on earth. If you get a chance, that's the one to go to. Kiribati, written Kiribati. I didn't know it's actually pronounced Kiribati. And he's currently on a ship off the coast of Nauru. And Nauru is the third smallest country in the world, behind Vatican City and Monaco. He also told me it's one of the least visited countries in the world as well. So I did ask him what it's like.
It's the world's smallest island nation. I actually walked around it because I could. The distance to go once around is about 20 kilometers, and it took me less than 6 hours to walk around the entire country. People, they are super friendly. They're really, really nice. And because they're not used to tourism, they're not asking anything for anything. You get a bottle of water for free, you get a coconut for free, you get a ride for free. They're really helpful. They seem kind of reserved. They're very happy to discover that I'm not Australian. I don't think they've got anything against Australians, but they're really used to Australians. There are a lot of Australian expats. There are also a lot of Chinese expats, so a lot of them probably just assume that I'm Australian until we start talking. And so it's the kind of destination where most of their tourists are people who are trying to go to every country in the world. So I actually ran into a guy from Finland who's been to 189 countries and is almost reaching his goal.
Imagine that on the marketing campaign. Nauru, the place you go to if you're trying to go to every single country in the world.
I mean, this isn't the first time this has happened to him as well, where he said, I bumped into somebody trying to obviously not do the exact same thing that he's trying to do about not taking a single flight. But this isn't the first time he's bumped into someone trying to get to every country in the world.
So do you think there's a little rivalry
There's a little community,
there?
I think, of them.
And I think the fact that I'm from Finland, where are you from? Denmark. What are you doing? Trying to visit every country? So am I.
I can just imagine. I can imagine getting down to the harbour, seeing someone else on a container ship with a wry smile as they go off into the distance.
And then there's that Western stare-down image, like a Western music in the background and just pan from one eye set to the other.
Scandinavian rivalry.
Yeah.
He did say it was like what you would expect from a remote island. Azure waters, lots of fish, very green. He said you could just reach up and grab your own coconuts. The coconuts don't belong to anybody. You could just reach up, grab your own coconut and drink it if you want to. Now, we did mention just a moment ago, he's been to 4 Pacific islands recently. So we talked about Nauru there, but also Papua New Guinea, Solomon Islands, Kiribati. I was asking him, are they kind of all the same? When you go to a remote island in the Pacific, I was wondering how similar are they exactly?
PNG is massive. It's the world's second largest island, I think. Second largest island after Greenland. and the diversity is massive, and it's hard to go almost anywhere in PNG. Mountain ranges and dense forests and so on. And PNG might not always be as safe as some of the other places, especially the big cities in PNG. They get a little bit rough. And Solomon Islands is just this paradise of a lot of small islands. It's a smaller population. In PNG and Solomon Islands, they like to chew betel nuts, which is this nut you put in your mouth, and you chew it long enough and you spit out this red juice once in a while. So you got these red stains all over the place. And people are super friendly, and it looks like paradise. I went to Tarawa. It's an entire island, which is a capital, in Kiribati. And Kiribati is widely spread out. I think from the west to the east, it's some 4,000 kilometers between their islands. In the east, you have very famously Christmas Island. But I was in Tarawa, and Tarawa is so narrow that you can always see water on both sides. I guess it would be a hellish place to be if there was a storm, but they don't really get hit by storms up there. They've got a garbage problem, so you see a lot of garbage around, but if they cleaned up that garbage, that would just be a spitting image of paradise. And then Nauru, I guess, is so tiny. It feels like a village. I grew up in a place with less than 2,000 people, and if you broke a window, everybody knew it was you. And it feels like Nauru is exactly the same.
So don't break windows in Nauru is the moral of that story.
Yeah, you're not going to get away with very much. Not any of those things that Chris McCarty was up to as a young boy that he's told us about.
Absolutely. The rope
There's nowhere to run.
Knocky-dory run. Can't be getting up to any of those
There's
nefarious.
nowhere to go. He did, I don't know if you caught it there, he did talk about the fact that Papua New Guinea isn't that safe, or it has a little bit of a reputation. So I did ask him to tell us a little bit more about that.
I ended up in Port Moresby, which is the capital and the largest city they have. I suspect if I would have gone outside of Port Moresby, then it would just have been villages, and it would have been really, really nice, and people would have been friendly, and it would have been quiet, and so on. But you do hear a lot of stories from PNG, and there are some run-ins between police and local groups and this kind of stuff. And generally they say, and definitely in Port Moresby, at nighttime you shouldn't be walking around, that you're highly likely to get robbed. They call these people for rascals, but some of them are more than rascals. Some of them are hardcore gangsters. You hear a lot of stories, but you know how people are as well with stories.
I can always tell with Thor, he never wants to say anything that can be perceived as negative about a place, because he doesn't want to perpetuate any kind of stereotypes about a place that he doesn't think are accurate. He's very cautious about how the media presents places as more dangerous as they are. I mean, he always makes a point to say how what he's learned through his travels around the world, how safe it actually is.
And how much more respectful everyone is, and how much kind of welcoming most countries are. And he's absolutely right there. It's only fair. I think you can only judge certain places when you've been yourself, and he has been at pains over the course of our interactions with him over the last 12 months to say that.
He did mention, though, that he was a bit wary in Papua New Guinea.
So I do remember I was walking down from this expat compound and down to the center of town. And having done that 3 or 4 times, I noticed that I was being noticed. And I was being noticed by some types where I felt that if I continued to do that walk, maybe 2 or 3 more times, then they might come and harass me. I don't know for sure. It's just a sense I got.
So I guess at that point you made that your last walk?
Well, I was in Barbados in 2014, and I was living with some local guys, and they would take me around. And after some time, I would notice we never walked the same way back to their house. We would always walk on a different street. And I asked why, and they said, it's good to be random sometimes. It's not always good to be predictable. So that's something I thought about as I travel around the world, and I also applied that to PNG.
We're in conversation with our unconventional travel correspondent, and he's over in the Pacific Islands. He's been to Papua New Guinea, Solomon Islands, Kiribati. to Nauru as well, and he encountered Sonal along the way quite a lot of the locals.
Well, so we took the opportunity to talk to him about, these are some of the least visited places on Earth. I mean, we constantly talk about these places when they come up in strange facts about places with sort of low populations or that kind of thing. So we wanted to find out from him also, what was it like? Can you go visit there? Is there a tourism infrastructure? If you just show up on Nauru or the Solomon Islands, is there a place for you to stay? Where do you eat? He said that there are options. You can actually just go on booking.com and find places to stay, but it's super expensive.
Really?
He said it's really, really expensive to go there. And things, you can get like a SIM card as well if you want. So there is infrastructure there. He said it's just really pricey if you want to do that. He suggested just grabbing a hammock and setting up on the beach.
Which is exactly what he's done, I take it.
Well, no, he didn't actually end up doing that, but he did stay at a village. So he did tell me, I asked him about if there are still indigenous tribes in these areas.
Definitely indigenous tribes. There might even be people in PNG that haven't seen modern people before. Like, PNG is really like the last true adventure. Solomon Islands was known for headhunters. I think the headhunting days are over, but it might have existed just 40 or 50 years ago.
So, sorry, what is that?
So they would capture the enemy and cut their heads off, and then they would stock the heads in a shrine. So, and they also used to have cannibalism, but that's way back in the day. But the headhunting might have been just 50 years ago. It ended in Solomon Islands. So I went and I stayed in a village for a few days. They didn't have any tap water. They didn't have electricity apart from starting a generator, and then so no running water. But they had a laptop and they had cell phones and that kind of stuff. So it was pretty modern in some way. I suspect there would be some local tribes across Kiribati. They have a lot of islands. I'm not sure how developed all of them are. In Nauru, there are definitely no local tribes. Nauru is made up out of 12 tribes, so you could say they have nothing but tribes, but these people are driving cars and wearing jeans and on Instagram and that kind of stuff.
And not cutting people's heads off.
No. Well, obviously, this is a historical practice that he was talking about, but I thought it was interesting that he said Papua New Guinea is the last great adventure.
I liked as well.
The most
it said
unknown.
headhunters. I'm thinking of loads of people for recruitment agencies over there, and I think that's why you.
My bad. I was supposed to give a little warning there. That slipped my mind, but not for the faint-hearted for sure. That kind of practice.
They don't cold call
about.
you.
He did, when he talked also about the village that he stayed in, he said they use solar panels to charge their cell phones. So it's funny. On the one hand, there's no running water, and on the other hand, solar panels to charge their cell phones, which is quite technologically advanced.
It's very much it is. It's the future. It's what it is. Interesting. It does make you kind of wonder. I mean, he is, and you mentioned this, Sonal, when we spoke to him 3 or 4 months back, he was aiming for a January finish, just over 6 years. That's now been extended.
Yeah, he's had to push back a bit. He thinks now he's going to finish his challenge around May or June of 2020. As we mentioned, he's got 12 more countries to go, and he does have it all planned out, so he knows how he's going to get there. Next is Fiji. It's going to take him about 7 to 8 days in a ship in order to get to Fiji from where he is right now off the coast of Nauru. He's going to the Marshall Islands, Micronesia, Palau, Vanuatu, Samoa, Tuvalu, New Zealand, Australia, Sri Lanka, and the Maldives. This is finishing point.
So he's finished up in that nice little $2,000 a night.
Yeah.
Wait,
he deserves
villa.
it. He definitely deserves it.
He's going from Australia to Sri Lanka.
He is.
So you'll have to be on a container. That will be
That's going to be a long journey. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
So we will, of course, be in touch with him in a couple months as well, and then as he nears the end of his
It'd be
journey.
interesting to find out how he is as it continues to get delayed. How he's funding these delays, because he's obviously budgeted for X amount of days, or he was initially planning to finish a lot sooner than this.
Yeah, he definitely wasn't expecting this journey to take him quite so long.
So he must be raising money, or not entirely sure.
Sponsors was what he was doing. He was handouts. I think his fiancée back in Denmark was helping on as much as she could as well.
What, jingling a kind of bucket of please spare your loose change?
She was sending over some funds, friends and family. He admitted to us that 6 months or so ago that a lot of what he was doing was through the generosity of his family and friends.
It's going to be tough for him to sort of come back to home and kind of to be a big transition.
There are a lot of publications all around the globe, BBC, New York Times.
No, I know, but just when that comes to an end, it's been a 6-7 year odyssey when it comes to an end, that'll be...
I think he'll just be happy to head on home, put the feet
I
up,
think
Rob.
he's going to be relieved.
You think?
I do. After all these conversations I'm sure it'll be an adjustment because it is such a huge life change.
Yeah.
But it sounds to me like he's going to be relieved to go back home.
So looking at a May-June 2020 finish for Thor Pedersen, and I can guarantee you that we will be in touch with him several times between now and
We're
then.
still trying to figure out how to get to the Maldives to meet him.
Yeah, that's the one.
We need KFC to sponsor the show.
Yeah.